Hello everyone and welcome. In case you have not heard, tomorrow, Friday the 15th, we are getting the long overdue wipe and the beginning of the new season for Dark and Darker. And I am trying to answer the question of what character am I going to main in this season. So over the last week or so, I've been on the test server almost exclusively, and I have been leveling characters from 1 to 15 in my free time. There's a lot to talk about with the test server. I'm not sure Iron Mace knows what to do with it, as they are patching tomorrow with no pre-release to the UAT environment, which is a strange decision. But regardless, I have seen a large variety of players on the test server, many more than I expected, honestly, with a lot of the white lobbies are filling up very quickly. A lot of the high roller lobbies are kind of hit and miss. I think the most, I got into one full game early, shortly after the release of the UAT server, and then I have not had a full game since. The most average experience is between 3 and 6 players, and very little PvP, so it's been a good opportunity to kind of test the different classes, where we are from a balance perspective. And before we begin in this central conversation, which is what should you main, the answer is you can main anything you want. You can play anything you want. I think all classes can be made to work, both solos, duos, and trios. But with that being said, there's lots of caveats in there, and I want to talk to you about where my thought process is right now. So traditionally, you'll know I've been a huge enjoyer of both Cleric and Ranger. I'm looking to kind of swap that up this season and do something different. I have a lot of time on a lot of different characters. So let's go to the first one that I'm going to rule out as a selection. I will not be playing Barbarian. I think Barbarian is still very viable, particularly solo. They're really strong. They've got a good kit. They've got effective perks. But the reality is they kind of lack a lot of team synergy. So in terms of playing with my mates, I really don't think the Barbarian's going to bring enough to the table to justify his almost complete lack of utility. And it's a playstyle I really don't enjoy. So talking about another class you probably shouldn't play right now, I'm going to talk about Rogue. And this may be a controversial take, but the Rogue is in a really bad spot right now. And I don't see that getting better anytime soon, because frankly, Iron Mace doesn't really know what to do with the Rogue without making it completely broken. A lot of this has been, nerf buff, nerf buff, nerf buff. And while you can make it work, my question is really, why would you try to make it work? So in a second, I'm going to take 2 videos and put them side by side. This is a Rogue in base gear at level 14. And I'm running through some of the base weapons. I've got a Castilian dagger in the offhand, and then I'm going to swap to a short sword, and then I'm going to swap to an epic rapier. In the meantime, I've got a bard over here, level 12, running no gear, just the instruments, and I'm going to apply my self buff. On the left here, you're looking at a rogue with an epic rapier. And on the right, you're looking at a self-buffed bard with a gray rapier. Now, as any of you guys who have leveled 1 knows, taking a rogue into the dungeon for the first time is grueling. You have to execute flawlessly, you must play perfectly, you must take very little damage. The bard is incredibly forgiving. The bard, which I'm playing here on the test server right now, is a better rogue than the rogue is. The fighter, if you want to wear leather, go fast, and kill people with high burst damage and low hit points, the fighter is just a better choice than the rogue, hands down. In terms of utility, the bard is better from a group 3s and 2s perspective. It brings a lot of utility to the table. It can open locks. It can do a group invis. And it's just better at doing the job that Iron Mace seems to kind of want the rogue to be doing, which is the glass cannon melee DPS role. The bard is just better at it. So I'm going to put rogue at the top of the list of classes I'm not going to level, at least not initially, in this phase of content, right up there with Barbarian. Played a bit of Warlock. You would think that Warlock, in an environment where there's basically no PvP, and you can just run around in PvE, would be really strong. The reality is, I think the Warlock is still kind of bad. It gets worse the more players you add into the equation. You can make it work. At the very high end of the gearing, it can be a formidable opponent in PvP. But the PvE experience, which should be like its crown jewel, it should be on paper really, really strong. It just doesn't feel good to play. It's as fussy as the Bard is, and the Bard is a very fussy class. Every 2.5, 3 minutes, you've got to basically reapply all of your buffs, and this involves a lot of weapon swapping, and it's fussy. The Warlock is kind of the same way, and it just doesn't have any kind of group utility. So I'm not real excited about the Warlock. If you're a new player and you're thinking about leveling your first character to kind of learn the ropes in Dark and Darker, as I will say in my upcoming build guide for new players, there are two classes which you should really be focusing on. The Fighter and the Cleric are both incredibly solid. They have great sustain, and they have a multitude of roles that they can play in every comp, from solos to duos to trios. They can frontline, they can DPS, they can support the team with utility, and they're just solid picks. Plus, let's just emphasize the sustain that we get in both of those classes. So as a new player, you're coming into the game, you don't understand the mechanics, you don't know how to fight the mobs. Both of them are very forgiving from a healing perspective. You can come in naked and extract on your first run pretty easily on both classes relative to the other ones. And those are just really solid picks. Last but not least, let's talk about Ranger. Let's talk about Wizard. I think right now Wizard is going to be an incredibly strong pick in this season. I say that for a couple different reasons. First of all, solo, duo, and trio, they're all super viable. They all have different playstyles. They're incredibly strong from a PvE perspective, and they're incredibly strong into certain classes in a PvP perspective. And right now, I think we're entering into a scenario where Fighter is going to be at the top of the pick list in solos, duos, and trios, and I think Rogue is going to be the weakest it really ever has been. And the thing that really, rains on a Wizard's parade is the Cutthroat Rogue, and I think we're going to see a lot less of those. I think we're going to see a lot more dual-wielding fighters out there running a Slayer variant or a Weapons Master variant, running daggers and rapiers, etc. And the Wizard is really good at dealing with them. So, yeah, so to circle around real quick, I think the meta that's forming up for the next season is really going to value fighters in both their roles, clerics in all of their roles, Wizard as a DPS, and Bard as a utility DPS. I think all of those are super solid. I think that Warlock, I think that Rogue, and Barbarian are going to be the least played classes. I just don't think... I think they're being pushed to the outside of the meta. I don't know what Barbarian is going to do after they have nerfed throwables. If you're not following the stream of consciousness news updates from Iron Mace, they are currently looking at evaluating a debuff to opening your inventory. This seems highly targeted at classes that are either bringing multiple ranged weapons for hot swapping or bringing a lot of utility items like Franny axes. And the purpose for this nerf is to really reduce the effectiveness of Frannies. The Barbarian without Frannies is, I think, just a worse fighter. But we'll have to see. So the classes right now, if you're looking for my opinion, that I would not be putting energy into, at the start of this wipe, I would be avoiding Rogues, Warlocks, and Barbarians. I would be focusing, again, on the Bard, the Cleric, the Fighter, and the Wizard. I think that they're really going to be shining very early in this patch. And all of this is based on, I just took a fresh look over the last week. I played a bunch of different characters up to, 15 or 20. And this is all based on the enjoyment of the PvE experience, the utility in the PvE experience, and the ability to hold your own in the occasional PvP engagement. I've been playing almost exclusively high rollers, and all the PvP right now on the test box is in the white lobbies, the normal lobbies, and obviously these equations change when you're talking about white lobbies because of the gear restrictions, but I think that's about to become less pronounced with the addition of the Squire. Long overdue. Would have been really great had they gotten this in time for their white lobby testing. But essentially, the ability to have on demand the white gear that you need to push your build, it's going to be super great. Super great change. And you know, yesterday I was talking with one of my buddies, and we haven't done enough celebrating how great the auction house is. So I just really wanted to call that out. It's by far the best thing that they did in the last 2 months. Was the addition of the auction house. It's actually now no longer painful to have to go shop for replacement gear or to build a new set. Just really well done all the way around. So those are my thoughts on class choice. I've got it down to, you know, probably Wizard, but maybe Bard is what I'm thinking about leveling first in the new wipe. How about you guys? What are your thoughts? What are you going to play? How excited are you for the new content? I know I am very excited to be getting a wipe. Looking forward to these changes, which are too many to talk about on the horizon. But anyway, that's all I've got for you guys today. If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It helps me a ton. And until next time, Koopa out.